We're coming to you with an emergency briefing. A crisis that started in one tiny strip of water is now sending massive shockwaves through the entire global economy. And honestly, no one is immune. To help us make sense of this, we've brought in our geopolitical expert. That's exactly right. And that quote you see on the screen, that's not hyperbole. The International Energy Agency itself is calling this the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. That is a massive, massive statement. It's a stark warning. So to really get a grip on how we got here, and more importantly, what this means for all of us, we've got to break it down. Okay, so here's the plan. We're going to tackle this in 5 parts. First, we'll look at the epicenter itself, what we're calling the world's choke point. Then the immediate shockwave hitting the markets. After that, and this is the big one for most people, how it hits your wallet and your pantry. We'll also look at the global response, what's being done about it. And finally, what this new reality looks like for all of us moving forward. All right, let's start right at the beginning, the world's choke point. So what exactly is this place? And how on earth does a conflict in one spot have the power to bring the entire global economy to its knees? Well, the whole crisis really comes down to this one location, the Strait of Hormuz. The best way to think about it is like the main artery for the world's energy supply. It's this super narrow stretch of water, and it's the only way for the big oil and gas producers in the Gulf to get their product out to the rest of the world. So if that artery gets clogged, or in this case, blocked, the flow just stops. And here's the number that explains why this is so critical. 20%. Just think about that. 1/5 of all the oil and gas the world uses every single day has to pass through that tiny choke point. It's a huge, glaring vulnerability, a single point of failure in our global energy system. Okay, so this vulnerability isn't just a what if anymore. It's real. The choke point is shut down. So let's talk about the immediate shockwave. What are the numbers? What's the damage to the markets right now? The first thing that happened is that the tankers just couldn't get out. So countries in the Gulf had no choice but to cut their production by at least 10 million barrels a day. Now, to put that in perspective for everyone, the entire world uses about 100 million barrels a day. So we're not talking about a small dip here. We're talking about 1/10 of the world's supply vanishing, just like that. Yeah, and it's really just basic economics, right? Supply and demand. You suddenly pull 10 million barrels of oil off the market, and the price of what's left is going to go through the roof. And that's exactly what we saw. Crude oil prices jumped by $20 a barrel, pretty much overnight. Right, and I've been seeing this term pop up in the headlines everywhere. Force majeure. Can you just break that down for us? What does that actually mean in this context?
Sure. In simple terms, it's basically a legal get-out-of-jail-free card. It lets companies like the huge gas supplier Qatar Energy tear up their delivery contracts without being penalized. They're essentially saying, hey, there's a war going on, it's beyond our control, we can't get you the energy we promised. It's a very formal, very serious signal that the supply chain is broken.
Okay, I get it. The markets are in a total tailspin. But let's bring this down to earth. This is the your wallet, your pantry part of the briefing. Why should the average person, the average family, care about a blocked waterway that's thousands of miles away? Well, this quote from Professor Tim Lang, who's a leading expert on food supply chains, really says it all. All bets are off. An energy crisis like this isn't just about paying more for gas. That's just the start. It kicks off a chain reaction, a domino effect that hits absolutely everything, especially the food that ends up on our tables. And look how fast this happens. We're only 2 weeks in, and food price inflation has already doubled. People ask why. Well, fertilizer for crops is made from natural gas. The trucks and ships that move our food run on fuel. All of that just got way more expensive. Fast forward to 6 weeks from now, and we could be looking at actual shortages of things like chicken, pork, even tomatoes, because it's just too expensive to heat the greenhouses. And if this thing drags on for 6 months, it starts to hit the big green supply chains. We're talking about the price of bread, cereal, stuff that affects everyone well into next year. So this really boils down to one very practical, very urgent question that I'm sure millions of people are asking themselves right now. Should I lock in my energy prices? Look, that is the million-dollar question, and the honest answer is nobody has a crystal ball. If you're someone who absolutely needs to know what your bills will be every month, then fixing your rate now, even if it's high, gives you that certainty. It's peace of mind. But you have to know you're making a bet. You're betting that this crisis and these high prices are going to last for a long time. Right. So with so much on the line, what's being done? Let's talk about the global response. Is there a plan to stop the bleeding here? The first big move has already happened. The major world economies, through the IEA, have agreed to open up their emergency reserves. They're releasing 400 million barrels of oil onto the market. It's a huge, unprecedented number, and the idea is simple. Try to fill that massive supply hole that the chokepoint closure created. But, and this is a big but, you have to listen to what the market analysts are saying. They're calling it a good first step, but they see it as insufficient. Basically, it's a Band-Aid. That 400 million barrels sounds like a lot, but it only covers the 10 million barrel a day shortfall for about 40 days. It's a stopgap. It buys us a little bit of time, but it absolutely does not solve the fundamental problem. So this whole crisis has really just ripped the cover off a huge fundamental weakness in the global system. That brings us to our last section, the world's new reality. What's the long-term lesson here? How do we make sure we're not in this exact same position a few years from now? Real energy security isn't about finding another country to buy oil from. It's about needing less of it in the first place. And the path to get there really has four main parts. First, we have to get serious about reducing how much gas we need. And that means going all in on wind and solar. Second, we need to fix our electricity market so when we generate cheap power from renewables, people actually see those savings on their bills. Third, yeah, we should use our own domestic resources, but as a bridge to get to that green future. And fourth, it's time to get on with nuclear power, but do it smartly and efficiently. Look, none of this is easy or fast, but this crisis is basically screaming at us that it's absolutely essential. And I think that's the bottom line, isn't it? What this whole thing has shown us, in really painful detail, is that we can't control the choke points. We can't control geopolitics in some far-off corner of the world. So the real question we have to ask ourselves is, can we control our exposure to them? Can we build an energy system that's strong enough, resilient enough, that the next time a choke point closes, it doesn't cause this kind of global chaos?